Hello there, and welcome to John and Hector do international films with friends. And I thought the only way I can get Hector into this bit is to actually lie down next to him because he's fast asleep and not going anywhere. So, anyway, this one is eight and a half of Federico Fellini's masterpiece from 1963, and it is the story of a director who is having some sort of breakdown, I suppose you'd call it. He's making a science fiction film and trying to do something earnest and worthwhile. And while he's trying to do it, he is visited by the many women in his life, and he has certain feverish dreams that take him to his past, to his childhood, and slightly surreal events take place. And I chatted with Philip for a long time, which we don't find difficult to do. And for half an hour, we swerved off onto the other films that I'm doing, and I'm going to post that as a little appendix. So here we go. Federico Fellini's Eight and a Half. I hope you enjoy it. Hello. Yes, we are now recording. See, I did say it. It's really hard not to say that. With my very good friend. I always say that as well, but you are my very good friend.
Thank you.
You wouldn't be on it if you weren't my good friend. Philip Browning. And yes, how long have I known you, Philip?
Oh, gosh, at least 20 years?
Yes, I'd say very well, though.
Oh.
I'd say very well, probably about 20 years. But then we met on and off before.
Yes, absolutely. We were circling one another in our solar room.
Yeah. Yes, we certainly never have failed. We certainly never have a shortage of things to talk about.
No, that's true.
Yes, as they say in Australia with a Y. Yes. And so
up until Fellini.
So this is I talk about Federico Fellini's Eight and a Half. Otto e mezzo. I'm going to show off my Italian pronunciation.
Is that a Roman accent? I think it is.
Possibly, yes, with a little Florentine thrown in. Otto e mezzo, I did practice pronouncing his name before because I think you just go Mastriani.
I know.
Mastroianni, Marcello Mastroianni.
I heard a very good joke about his name that somebody said, I know how to spell it, but I don't know when to end. Anyway, carry on, sorry.
And Claudio Cardinale and lots of other Italian people who I don't know.
Yeah.
And Nino Rota, wonderful score by Nino Rota, which is interesting because it's got bits of The Godfather in it, which I didn't. The waltz, when they're sort of at that sort of do and he's dancing.
Yes.
His mistress, or it goes da, 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 like a jazzy version of the Godfather theme, which I can't find that referred to anywhere. But
that's really interesting because it was not literally ringing a bell, but I thought, this seems. Where do I know this from? It seems.
Yeah,
I've heard this somewhere before, but you're absolutely right. I didn't pinpoint it. That's really interesting.
He's allowed to reuse his own.
Yeah, of course he is. Don't we all?
Maybe it's an Italian folk tune that I.
It might be. Well, I mean, my entire career is based on regurgitating stuff I already did.
Well, I just do it with jokes and anecdotes. A funny thing happened to me the other day. No, it usually did. Right, so. I've got sort of list of questions here, but they tend to go out the window very appropriately when we were doing Jean-Luc Godard, because it was like, yeah, well, he wouldn't have stuck to the script. So, but the first one I just ask is what did you think of the plot? And then I say to Philip, what did you think of the plot of Eight and a Half by Federico Fellini? What did you think of the plot?
And I would answer, plot? What plot?
The plot.
Yes.
Plot.
It does have a plot because it's a film about itself, which is really unusual. And I think at the time it must have seemed completely revolutionary.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, people have said this before. This is nothing startlingly original, but it is about creativity and what happens when it runs out. But Fellini's playing this amazing game. The whole plot is I can't think about how to make a movie, and he's making a movie about that.
Yeah.
That's tremendously clever, and it could be tremendously irritating, and a lot of people have tried to do it since then, I think. And it's so self-referential that it could be awful, but partly because it was the first time I'd ever experienced that many years ago since I first saw it. I must have seen it about the year it came out. I mean,
yes, you saw it when you were very young, didn't you?
I saw it at Wolverhampton Film Society when I was far too young to see a lot of films that no 13-year-old schoolboy should be. I mean, really, I saw some startling things.
Yeah.
I saw an erect penis. Only on screen. Nothing.
I get to see one of them. Well, I've forgotten what they're like.
What was I saying? I've got completely off.
Yes. Well, I asked you. You were quite young when you saw it.
Yes.
So you've seen it at various stages.
No, I haven't. That's really interesting. And I'm one of those people that, having seen something, I very rarely return to something. So there are many of those great classics that, I watched Persona again, for instance, because of you, and I hadn't seen that since I first saw it all those years ago.
Yeah, I just watched that for the first time.
Yeah.
Incredible, though. Incredible.
Absolutely.
All these people who think they're being really radical these days, you're really...
That's what's interesting about 8½, is that it is an immensely radical film, I think.
Yes.
But, the only person who ever made a film like that I thought wasn't a huge wank is Starlight Memories, the Woody Allen movie.
Yeah.
And he's clearly very influenced by him, but he does his own. It's clearly Woody having a problem about making a film and actually making a wonderful film out of not being able to make a film. Yeah. That's very clever. So the film has fluidity. I think that's the word I would use to describe it. It flows from one thing to another in the most majestic way. He's an absolute master of that. So the fact that it does have a plot, but you're really just caught up on watching these people swim in and out of your view, as it were.
Yeah.
It's very much a director's eye all the time. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know whether that's answered it. What do you think?
You know what? Because I always bring things back to music, and so I can't help it. But I thought about it afterwards and thought, like a lot of international films, I don't think foreign films, because it makes me sound like Nigel Farage. Foreign films, international films, they're not hung up on plot, and we're so obsessed with plot because of Hollywood, because they tell stories in a brilliant way, Gone with the Wind and all that sort of thing, and all those great classic Hollywood films. A story, they tell you a tale. Not so bothered with that, even around about the 40s and 50s in international films. So it's like a piece of music. It's like Debussy.
Oh wow!
I'll explain. Because Debussy took, like before that, Beethoven, Mozart, they take you through a piece of music with their sonata form and whatever, their development, and they take you through it, and they take you to the next bit, and they take you to the next bit, and then they finish with a big finish. Whereas Debussy was interested in sounds, very interested in sort of Indonesian gamelan stuff. And then they don't do that. They just make sounds. They make sounds that link to each other. And he did that. And so but it's as satisfying, but just in a different way.
Absolutely.
And I found this about him, is that because the images, you just bombarded with images in the first 5 minutes of it.
Can I just say that's one of the great openings of any film ever.
Incredible. So you're straight in there.
Sorry, I interrupted.
But not in terms of, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what you're going to show me. I wonder what you're going to, what your imagination is going to bring up. I mean, that keeps you watching, I think.
Yeah.
And the plot is basically that he's trying to make a film and that he's cheating on his wife and he's lying to them. He's trying to be decent but not succeeding. Like, hi. You're a man, aren't you? No.
Exactly.
And that, there's a lot of navel gazing. But he was the first to do it, so it's been copied. It's been copied a lot by other people. And I saw the Woody Allen film when I was about 18, because I was
Yes.
really young. I didn't know what 8.5 was. I knew that he liked
Fair
Fellini.
enough.
I'd
You
never
don't.
seen a Fellini film, so I
Yeah.
didn't know the references.
You don't have
I
to
loved
watch
it.
8.5 to not to love. I mean, it's a wonderful
No,
film, I think.
no, and I need to rewatch that actually because I haven't watched that in a long time. In fact, I don't think I've really properly watched it all the way through since then. But I do remember that there's these people coming up to him and saying things to him like there is in the
Yes,
film.
exactly.
But they're very Woody Allen. Like I love
Yeah.
Jerry, funny ones. I love the things that critics say about Woody Allen,
Yes.
putting into the mouths of those people. And there's one scene which sticks in my mind in Stardust Memories, and it's very Fellini, is that he overhears the actresses talking about him and how awful it is to have to kiss him,
Yes.
and all that sort of thing. And he's basically saying, and I'm talking more about Stardust Memories now, but I think it's in 8.5 as well, in that he's basically saying, Woody Allen is probably saying, look, all these other films where I get this beautiful woman, like Diane Keaton, and I'm in bed with her. It's all bullshit. It's basically my fantasy world, and this is the reality that I hire these girls and they have to kiss me. And I think Fellini's got the same thing. He's basically just saying it looks glamorous, but it's not. I mean, somebody said was it Dolce Vita? It's the saddest film ever made.
Yeah.
And it is sad. I find
I think 8.5
Real
is
Housewives
really,
are sad.
you're right. It's a very sad film. Yeah.
Their lives are empty, totally empty.
Yeah. But will always be empty. In the 1960s in Cinecittà. What a great place to be.
Cinecittà.
Cinecittà. I think that's
it cost as much to make as Cleopatra. I read.
Yes.
Pauline Kael said that. She said, you could. He said the budget was just enormous. And they were saying, and people dismiss Cleopatra because it's like trash. Well, it's trash.
Yes.
But she thinks this is trash too. Read her reviews.
Really?
She's quite mean about it.
Right.
But did I love it? Didn't I? By the end of it, I absolutely loved it. At the beginning of it, some aspect of it, which is skipping down a few questions, jarred on me. And then I read about.
Tell me what jarred on you. That's interesting.
The dubbing. I mean, it's because I'm a lover of acting and actors and performers, and I suddenly thought they're all dubbed and really badly at times.
Yeah.
Like there's people going, and it's making no. And then I've read that that's how Italians made films. They made all their films like
It's very much how Fellini made films. He liked to shout at the cast while they were filming. So there was no soundtrack. He put the soundtrack on afterwards. Can you imagine? He couldn't keep quiet even during it.
People like Bergman and that, you're watching it actually happen.
It's very alienating. But it's interesting because I watched Satyricon for the first time about a month and a half ago, and that's a film. It has an international cast. None of them speak the same language. None of them are speaking the same language out of their mouths.
It's usually a recipe for disaster. But,
yeah, absolutely. But it's really odd in Satyricon. It didn't upset me because I thought this is a very foreign experience in the sense that you're looking at an ancient world that is completely different from ours. So I didn't mind the fact that the mouths were. I don't know whether Fellini intended it to be alienating, but that's exactly what it is. For me, it all added to the complete chaos of filmmaking.
It's a referential film anyway, and you suddenly think it's not really about the performances. Although the woman who plays his wife with the spectacles and that very standard 1960s, she looks like either a lot of secretaries copied that look, so it looks. But she's got those glasses and that really.
Absolutely.
And she's dubbed, but I think she gives a wonderful performance.
It's a lovely performance, absolutely.
She's really good. But I don't think I think that's kind of accidental.
Yeah.
Another thing Pauline Kael says, you sort of see this parade of freaks, for want of a better phrase, these exaggerated people in front of the camera. And you're not going, oh, they're a good performer. You're going, well done. Where did you find them, Fellini?
You're thinking about the casting director, really. I mean, where did they find those?
Wow, well done for finding that weirdo.
Absolutely.
So it is like a parade of weird. So I had to take one of my main reasons for enjoying films out, which is I do enjoy really good acting. I don't mean like
Performance.
that sort of thing, but I
No,
mean
no, no, no. But yeah,
a
absolutely.
performance. I like to. It was alienating, and it was taking me out of the experience of
Yes.
getting involved in it a
Yeah.
little bit, but only at the beginning. And when I realised, oh, they're not just technically crap; it's just the way Italians
Yeah.
make films, and they always have done, and they don't mind, and it's the way they do
I,
it.
I
Yeah,
don't know. It's interesting. We have to find this out because I don't know whether that's a general Italian thing or whether. But I know it was very specifically Fellini's way of making a film.
yeah.
He would sit behind the camera shouting at you.
I think round about that time it was. I don't know
Yeah.
what.
Right. Okay. I suppose
Uh,
for an international market, you dub it into German, French, English. I
yeah.
guess because you could sell the film more.
Well, I thought
I
I could
don't know.
watching this in English. I mean, I quite like listening to Italian, so you sort of think, well, that would be why, on the whole, I wouldn't watch a dub film. I'd rather watch subtitles because I want
Yeah.
to hear the actual performer performing.
I very rarely enjoy a dubbed film.
Yeah.
Like, this is off the point again. I'm
I
sorry,
know
but
you can go off the point.
that's all right. I've been watching a lot of Japanese Studio Ghibli things,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the dubbed ones are horrible. They're so saccharine because they're American voices. Sorry to say.
Yeah.
You watch it with subtitles in Japanese, it's not at all saccharine. It's
Yeah.
much more disturbing, actually. So, yeah, generally, I don't like dubbed things. I would never do well living in Germany where they dub everything.
Of everything. I
Yeah,
know.
if you want to have a good career, be a German dub artist because I don't
Yeah.
mean dub music. No,
That's
I
just my
don't know.
stop at anything that anybody under 30 does. I just do.
Absolutely. Big
Well,
gossip.
on Netflix as well, you sometimes accidentally switch on a
Hit the
series
subtitles
and
thing.
you get the dubbing comes on.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a German series called The Dark, which I love. See, this is way off point now,
No?
but no, we're talking about the dubbing.
Yeah.
And I started watching it, and I thought, oh, I know that character. He just sounds weird. And they're going, hello, I didn't see where were you this morning when I came down for breakfast? And then you actually listen to and they're just talking like this,
Yeah.
I thought, oh my god, that really sounds like somebody acting.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like a radio play, it's like they're sort of miming to the archers.
Have you actually now, sorry, speaking about dubbing in Italian directors, have you seen The Damned or Visconti film?
I've left Visconti off, but Visconti's a little bit because I sort of said 1970.
Yes.
So, which is why I happily
The Damned might just hit your 70s. I'm not sure when it was made, but that's an appallingly dubbed film where you get a Swedish actress and Dirk Bogarts speaking to each other, and they're not in the same room. Basically,
we know Dirk. We know he doesn't talk like that. Yeah, it seems to be more of a problem for us, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think it happens now. So
no, I don't think it does. Absolutely, exactly.
Recent Italian film that I've watched. Oh, there's that one which is very Fellini-like, although he makes films in English now, and I can't remember his name. But The Great Beauty, and he did.
Yes.
And he did Tilda Swinton one.
Yeah.
I am somebody. I am Tilda.
Yeah.
But but I don't think that was dubbed. But it had very Fellini-like people in it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm sorry, I drew you right off.
No, it's good because we ended up. I mean, in the Breathless one with my friend Andrew.
Yeah.
We ended up speaking about our mutual friend who lived in France in the 50s. So it's fine. I mean, we didn't just talk about that, but it's fine. Look, I mean, nobody's going to watch it. I will say occasionally. I kept saying occasionally. For people who don't know, there's going to be anybody who doesn't know watching this. So it doesn't matter.
Aren't we sending it to Mark Commode? I thought this was actually getting into podcasting.
In the Bergman one, my friend, his greyhound pulled a cake off the table and ate it while we were doing it, and he suddenly left. And so I was sitting there going, "This is quite Bergman-esque, actually."
It is.
Sitting there with an
great sound completely.
There's something dramatic going on in the next room, so it's fine. And I don't, could I just go through and say, "Oh, that's not as interesting as that"? I'm not going to make this.
No, good. Okay.
Life's too short. KB the other night, for those who don't know, KB is
Yes.
and he suggested that maybe I do a podcast version without the visuals, and that might be easy for people to access. But we'll see. And also, somebody else said, you know, you can tag in
Yes.
French New Wave or Italian neo. You can tag
Of
that in.
course, absolutely.
So I might get around to that when I, you know, and
Well,
I can go for like 20 viewers.
yes. Come on, that would be
Get
fabulous.
there.
What this has made me do, actually, interestingly, is because I don't rewatch films very often, I am going to rewatch films from that period that made a huge impact on me. So I've never seen Last Year at Marienbad again since I saw it as a teenager. Talk about not having a plot. And I was completely bowled over by it. It remains in my head. It's wonderful. So I need to go back and find out whether it still is.
I toyed with the idea of putting, that's what Renee is. That's Renee. I toyed with the idea of putting some Renee in, and then I don't know whether, because I didn't know whether, although it's not 3 hours, is it, or is it?
No, it's not that long. And the thing is that it's visually so beautiful that actually, although it might irritate people because it keeps repeating itself, and it's about a central mystery that is never explained. Doesn't matter. It looks so beautiful, and they are so well dressed.
Yeah.
Just
give them anything.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like flicking through Vogue, but having your internet stimulated at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's very stylish, this film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you just
Okay, well, let's talk about how stylish it is.
Yeah, Mastroianni is, you know, glasses, and I mean, he's very into making him look as cool as he possibly can be at any time with the suit. That will never look out of fashion. He just looks fantastically cool all the way through it.
So do you think, this is interesting, because that's one of the things that crossed my mind because he is so stylish and so beautiful and so, you know, I think the French call it négligé, studé négligé, I think it's called. You know, it's negligent. Was it Fellini sort of saying, hey, was it an ego trip?
Is that his ideal?
Small and podgy and round.
Yeah, maybe that's how he wants.
I don't know.
I suppose it's a bit of an ego.
Superficial reading of it, I don't know.
At least Woody Allen cast himself and not like.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
Possibly. I mean, you see, the thing is, isn't the whole aspect of making a film, writing a novel, writing a poem, isn't it a little bit egotistic? I mean,
of course it is.
I mean,
would anyone do it?
It's you know, so he can only tell his own story. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's blatantly doing it rather than I'm going to tell a story about something about a bus driver, but it's really about me being a film director.
Absolutely.
Really. So he is just telling that story, and also I think I can see why this film is way up higher than La Dolce Vita, which I had seen and enjoyed.
Yes.
It's always high. This is always higher in the list of best films ever made because it's about show business. And one thing I know is that critics and actors and the film academies love films about show business.
Of course they do.
So, because it's a world that they know.
Yes.
But having said that, it is more than that because the dreams are so convincing. The dreams. I mean, if you've ever had a dream, you're like, that is like a dream. That is like a dream.
He does that so well. That comes down to my fluidity thing again. That they just flow, reality and fantasy, whatever they are in a movie, if there's any difference at all. But the two things are just flow into one another so effortlessly. He's just a master at that. And for someone who's making a film about how impossible it is to make a film, he's great at making films.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yes, yeah. And they're like stress dreams, you know, they're like the sort of fever dreams where people from your past turn up in weird
places. They're not floaty, beautiful things at all.
No. Absolutely. And also he addresses, because you think, oh, everyone's so beautiful. But actually in quite a modern way, and does slightly have its cake and eat it, addresses the whole, I just want beautiful people around me, you know, with the scene of the sort of aging sort of dancer who's relegated to the upstairs or whatever. Yes. You know, she's probably about 5 years younger than me, probably 10 years younger than me.
I know, exactly.
And you sort of think he is addressing that this is all about young, beautiful people, and most
Yeah.
people aren't young or beautiful. You know, you're not talking to the whole world here. So he does address that, and he addresses how mean he is to women.
Yeah. Yes.
By having them all gang up together.
No,
and,
absolutely.
and
That's great, I think.
And from various points in his life, is it his mother or his grandmother and his wife, and they're all in the same room from various points of his life, confronting him over stuff. And so it isn't like my life is wonderful. It's my life is awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if it's egotistical, really. I just think I find it.
Does it matter?
Coy about it. He's not coy.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind something being egotistical, actually, if it's good.
If it's good, yeah. And jumping straight to the end, and this has been because this the movie set just turns into a big party with everybody who's been in the film. Are they just a cast, or are they his past? Everybody he's ever met, basically, who appeared in the film. Yes. Lines up on the stage and does a sort of rumba. And it's so life-affirming and joyous, as if to say, well, whatever, I've got all these memories and all these people, and, you know, in the end, that's what life's all about. And
it's not cynical. It's really interesting. It's not cynical. I thought I would find it cynical. Somehow I had a stored up memory of it being a very cynical view of humanity. But actually, it's not. You're right. Life affirming is exactly what it's like. It's you know the end of the Seventh Seal, where they all go up dancing off on the hill.
Oh yes, it's a bit like that.
It's a bit like that, but it's much more brilliant, obviously.
Yeah, that's not really life death affirming more than life affirming.
And so I have to say I don't like circuses. Circuses have never excited me. And I went to see Cirque du Soleil once and thought I didn't like it. Yes. There's something about that artificial world that I find really off-putting. And I know that Fellini clearly adores circuses. So there was a point where I was being put off by that sort of approach but the end is, you're right, it is like affirming, absolutely.
Well, because this enormous rocket, I mean, I'm sure it's supposed to be the ultimate phallic symbol that he's built.
Yes, I'm sure.
For those of you who don't know, I mean, and why you'd be watching this before you watch the film, I really don't know anyway. But he's making a science fiction film. He wants to be, unlike his other films, and really honest and say something about mankind or whatever. And so there's this enormous set which they really built.
Absolutely. Cost a fortune.
This giant rocket. And so at the end, basically, they scrap the film. He says, I'm not going to do it. So they've got this big set, and all the characters from the film turn up and start dancing all over it. And then he sort of hugs them and things like that. And it ends quite happily.
Yes.
But I think, doesn't he sort of, I can't remember now, but I thought, has he killed himself? At one stage, he looks like he's around some paparazzi. Yeah. A word he invented.
Yes, absolutely.
Fellini invented, and then he seems to kill himself, and then he just comes back. You think, oh, that was a dream. So he didn't really do that. That was
I think I think both Fellini and the character of the director are incapable of actually committing suicide. I think they'll think about it, and they'll wonder what that's like, and how do I visualize that? But I think that he is diametrically opposed to that kind of thing.
Yeah, or maybe just thinking, I could kill myself, so I'm just going to put down the film.
So I'm going to, exactly.
And I loved seeing when they're watching the rushes of all.
Yes.
I mean, that is so meta, they would call it these days, wouldn't they? Film, where you're watching him audition characters for the film that you've already seen in his memory.
Yes.
And then is it a critic who keeps criticizing?
Yeah.
And everybody in the studio hangs him, which I thought was hilarious. Hilarious. Quite Woody Allen, actually. I was quite Woody Allen as well.
I just remembered, actually, going back to Starlight, I'm sorry, but there is a science fiction thing in it, isn't there? Because little green men from spaceships come and talk to him.
Oh, yeah.
That's another connection, actually, because they say, if you want some advice, make funnier films.
Yes. And he had written on every camera, this is a comedy. Although, I mean, there are times when you think, you know, because the scene, because suddenly it turns into a sort of like kitchen sink drama when he's in the hotel room with his ex-wife. She is, to me, she's the only real character in the whole film, because she just, I think she's his conscience, or
Yes, yes.
reality arrives. She doesn't believe a word he says because he's
No.
lying. Like his mistress turns up at breakfast and he goes, "Oh, you know, she's only just arrived or something," and like she's been there for days.
Yes.
And I think he invites her, doesn't he? I think he
Yes,
invites
yes,
her there.
absolutely.
And she's, you know, instead of going, she's just like, you know, whatever. I mean, she's just, so she's
So
not fooled by him by a second.
yeah, that's a good one, because a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, Fellini's such a misogynist." I
No,
don't think he is at all.
no.
I think the
Said the same about
women is really powerful.
Ingrid Bergman. They said the same. It said the same about Ingrid Bergman. She hated women, though. Said the same about Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah,
I think if you're a man, oh no, I don't want to get all anti-woke here.
I know.
If you're a man in the public eye, you're
Yeah,
going to have the misogyny being aimed.
yeah, of course you are. Especially when you sleep with all your actresses.
Sorry.
Especially when you, like Bergman, sleep with all your actresses. I mean, you know, that could land you with a bit
and
of.
they all stay friends. Like
Yes.
Pete Anderson
Very
moved
good,
out,
good.
Liv Ullmann moved in, and they stayed friends.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I think Fellini. Have you seen Juliet of the Spirits?
No. Is that the one about the? No, that's not the one. That's Nights and
It's not anywhere near as good as 8.5, but it's very interesting, and it's about having a relationship with a woman, a wife. It's very played by his wife, actually.
By his wife, who's in, I don't know, God, what's her name?
She's in La Strada.
Yeah, she's in La Strada, and she's in Nights in Cabiria.
Yes, yeah. Oh, she's wonderful in that.
Oh, I'm going to Google it.
Amazing face, very round face.
Fellini wife, Fellini, I think second. Fellini wife. Oh God, Giulietta Massina.
That's it. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's got a little pixie face.
Yeah, really. What an actress. Anyway, she's very good in Juliet of the Spirits. I really recommend it.
I know it's in colour, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful colour. Unbelievable colour. But that's a really interesting investigation into whether Fellini is a misogynist or not. He's not. The women have got him over a barrel, I think.
Yes, totally. And I suppose feminists would say, oh yes, but they always say that, you know, oh yeah, the women are in control really, but they're not. But and because they really weren't at that stage. Yeah. This is 1963.
Yes, absolutely.
So there's not a lot, the women's movement hadn't really got going. Certainly not. Has it yet in Italy? I mean,
I think they're still waiting. My friend.
Given the fact that we are in the 60s, it's a male-dominated industry, which it still is to a certain extent, but it's changing. He's very he seems to know where women are coming from.
I honestly, it's all right for me to say this, isn't it? God, what do I know? But I do feel that actually he does understand women, and he's not frightened of making an idiot of himself. I think they have. I think they have the measure of him. Actually.
He doesn't come out of it very well. It's not like like Hugh Grant, like, I'm such an idiot, so I don't blame you for loving me. It's not self-deprecating. It's basically, I'm a piece of shit, and I don't know how to stop being.
Absolutely.
Because men can be, and I'm one of them. So.
I think he's very honest about it. Unlike Visconti, who tried to sleep with every male member of his
male member, yes, opera singers as well, because he directed opera. So, but Bergman said about it because he had the misogyny being shined on him, and you could say rightly. It's time, really. I'm just trying to make sure I don't get. And off the internet. But no, I really do mean it is good to shine a light on these things.
Yeah.
We don't ban them, but I think it's good to shine a light on them from a perspective where women can say, well, look, actually, we didn't say so at the time, but we couldn't, but it was a bit dodge, felt a bit uncomfortable, blah blah blah. So it is good to shine that on, but I think it's unfair on Bergman.
It's completely.
And it's definitely unfair. From what I know more about Bergman. From what I feel, it's definitely unfair because certainly Bergman just said, why is it only the women in your films are neurotic? And that's somebody who's never seen a lot of his films, because
Oh,
you know
see Winter Lies. Bloody hell, that's the most prolific
exactly
male person I've ever.
exactly Wild Strawberries.
Yeah,
You know, there's
absolutely.
a vast, and you know, if you made films about men, they'd be saying, "I don't know anything about women." That wasn't an impression of a feminist thinking. That wasn't an impression of a feminist. But they would say that. So,
Yeah,
and also he said, most of the greatest actors, actresses I know are women, and
yeah,
I feel inspired to write them parts.
yeah.
So, which became, I think, it became more so later. He wrote parts for Liv Ullmann, he wrote parts for Lily Anderson because he was in love with them, and they were great
Yes.
actors. So he wasn't trying to make out that all women are neurotic. I mean, that's just such a lack of understanding of what he was
Yeah, if
doing.
this is someone who hasn't seen very many of his films, I'd suggest
No, but I think
probably they've probably just watched an ABBA.
yeah, I know. I can't wait to get on the persona to discuss the ABBA thing. It's amazing to think that such a pop culture thing has its basis in
There's
such
references
a work of art.
deep, absolutely.
And I mean, there is literally one. I mean, say that to
Yeah,
Liv.
there is.
She goes like this.
The first
And
time
you
I
expect
saw
him to go, knowing me.
the first time I saw that on Top of the Pops, I thought, my God, that's so extraordinary. Honestly, it's amazing. Talking about a meta piece of art, that
Yeah.
video is extraordinary because it's about a marriage breaking up, sung by a woman who's married to the man in the video.
Which they are, what's we're going through in real life, which is very
Yeah,
pertinent.
I mean,
Very
to make
pertinent.
her sing those words is just extraordinary.
I mean, if you
Anyway,
ever, this is sidetracking, but if you ever watch, for those who, you know, don't know, if you ever want to find out, watch Liv Ullmann talk. There's a lot of interviews about at film festivals on YouTube,
yes.
films that she was in with him, and she's always a joy because she really punctures the whole,
Oh,
and it wasn't. It was a lot of fun, and usually things that seem really artistic, like I think I mentioned to you. Why are you so silent in Persona? Because I couldn't speak Swedish. I
the most
was
perfect
Norwegian. And everybody, you're Norwegian. So she's Norwegian. She can speak English, Swedish really well. So
That's
that
so
became,
good, isn't it?
so it became a. So you know, anyway. But yes, less so about Fellini because I think he's less about actors and more about he's a bit Hitchcocky in the way he uses people.
Oh, it's really interesting you should say that because you know when I was watching it, I was thinking about that thing that Hitchcock probably never said about actors are like cattle. You just need to move them around. But Fellini really does do that.
Those long shots.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a ringmaster.
And he probably found them in the variety section of the Italian version of stage. So they probably have to go lie down at a certain point. So that must have been technically a nightmare. Yeah, but he's got long tracking shots, hasn't he? With people, and you know that must have been rehearsed.
Yes.
An inch of its long.
Oh God, can you imagine? Absolutely.
And very, very controlled, I would have thought.
Yes.
What? Sorry, I'm just a little.
No, go on.
Because I totally interrupted you in the middle of a really good point.
No, it's fine. What's next on the list?
Philip's thinking, oh my God, will we have anything to talk about? And now Philip's thinking, will I get a word in?
It's always like that, Tom.
I am a little bit. I can't help it. I don't know.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Don't know why. So yeah, you see these kind of questions I've got. They kind of break down because the fourth one was acting. The second one was camera work and cinematography. And actually, I don't know the name of the cinematographer, but it is beautifully filmed.
Oh, that's a really good question. Gosh, I don't know who it was.
Find out.
Find out because I wonder if it's one of those relationships that he had, like you know, Bergman and Nyquist or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Those, you know how directors have their favourite cinematographers.
Who went on to work for Woody Allen, of course.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Right. Italian cinematographer. Well, that's a very long name. Really should have researched that before.
But it's not an internationally known name, then.
Not that I recognise. I didn't put in 8.5 specifically, which would be a good idea. Let me put 8.5 in. I just put Fellini cinematographer. Half.
He's clearly, I mean, Fellini knows absolutely what he wants from the cinematographer.
So his name is Gianni Di Venanzo.
Okay.
It's
Well,
shot in black and white by cinematographer Gianni Di Venanzo and features a soundtrack by
okay.
I've not heard of him really, but it is
No.
absolutely beautiful and really that stylish black and white is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
That
presume
that's had a huge lasting influence. I think that the black and white photography of the film itself. You can see it again and again in the 70s, 80s, 90s. People making pop videos in black and white. Very often they think, "Oh, I'm going to make it look like 8.5 because it's so stylish."
yeah,
And
yeah, I'm
a
gonna
lot of
copy.
that. He really managed to invent a look, and I think it was invented because I can't remember anything looking like that. That artificiality in black and white, and that theatricality. It's very of its. I think he invented it. I can't think of another film that is like that
What I
before.
love is the sunshine.
Yes.
Actually, there are links between the two because Bergman does this as well. The black and white bright sunshine
Yes.
is really effective. I mean,
Goes
it
straight into the cap.
feels really, even though it's in black and white, it
Yes.
feels really almost distressingly hot.
Oh no, it's absolutely.
The scene with the prostitute, which
Yeah.
is so bleached out,
Yes.
and apart from her in sort of silhouette behind,
Yeah.
it's so brilliantly done. And of course, I remember telling you when I'd seen it that I
Dawn
hadn't realised that Dawn French had parodied that so perfectly.
It's
I
so
thought she was
perfect.
just doing a vague Fellini Italian woman, running around with a.
All that sort of complete madness is absolutely from 8.5. She does it brilliantly.
And she looks like her as well.
No,
She's got
she
the,
does.
the attention to detail, like the black
Yeah.
rings around the eyes and the teeth.
Yes.
I mean, whoever was the makeup person on those shows is absolute genius.
I
And
love
the
it.
cinematography is
Yeah.
fantastic. So that's
I
mentioned
love
some of the
it.
sketch about Fellini, which
Yes.
parodies the prostitute. He thinks back to when he was a child, and a bunch of his friends went to see this mad prostitute. I think she's
Ah.
living in a hut on the hill, and they watch her. And she just dances, and throws herself around, and they're totally obsessed by her. And the priest is saying, "You mustn't go and visit her; she's evil." And he's thinking back to that, and then she turns up later in the film in one of his.
Yes, exactly. I love it when if someone is parodying something, and the attention to detail is to such an extent that it doesn't matter if 80% of the people who watched that didn't quite get it and you discovered it.
I didn't know, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yes, it's funny, but it's also really spot on.
Really spot on. I recognise the other part. They do another section of Fellini films, which is people with big hair, women with hair, sort of speaking to each other like the sort of dubbed way, and they do that, and that rang a bell. But the black and white bit with Tom French, I hadn't realised it was almost a shot-for-shot copy with Tom French's madness thrown in,
and done with real love, I think.
Absolutely real love. And who would parody Fellini now on a mainstream BBC comedy show?
Exactly.
Now somebody in a suit would say, "Well, nobody's going to get that."
Yeah, no.
I'm afraid it's not speaking to.
We're not going to spend money on that.
It must have cost a fortune to recreate it.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I'm not sure.
But it costs a lot.
I'm not sure they get away with it now. Really.
No, yeah, it's a shame. Anyway, what's next?
The next question on my list is direction. I mean, we tend to talk about them all.
Yeah.
I think it's really directed. I mean, I was saying, I wonder if the cinematographer's responsible for those camera shots. I'm thinking, no, that's Fellini. He's controlling everything.
Yeah, I really do think he is the ringmaster. I think you really feel that, and it's about somebody who's losing control of his ringmastery. But you have to have a really great cinematographer to make it come real. And, I mean, that opening sequence must be a nightmare to film.
And Woody Allen, I mean, he comes very close to just remaking it because there's a scene. I can't. What happens in 8.5 now? I can remember what happens to Stardust Memories, and I saw that 40 years ago. Because he's on a train, isn't he? And the train, you can see the train going the other way.
It's really funny.
Either on the way to a camp or something.
That's right. They're either on the way
Oh no,
to
there's a train going the other way, and they're all
they're
enjoying
having a
themselves.
party.
Yeah,
And
they're all going to a party. That's right.
I think that is one of the most profound scenes in any Woody Allen film, because that's exactly what life is like. You always think, oh, there's a party on that other train.
Yes, FOMO. They've got the word for it, haven't they? FOMO.
Absolutely. It's very funny and really sad.
Yeah,
And that makes it
similar
very
for an 8.5. Is it people in cars or something? Or I can't remember. It's terrible because I've only just watched it. But there's a very similar scene at the beginning.
Yeah.
A series of sort of stressed, panicky
people in a traffic jam.
Yeah. Is he in a traffic jam? Or
and you can feel it's terrible. It actually is uncomfortable to watch because it's almost like you can smell the fumes.
Yeah.
It's so hot and Roman, you know.
Yeah. And then he does wake up, doesn't he? So you do think, no, you are sleeping because it's not a weird film. You know, it's not a surreal film where you go, what's going on?
Because, no, there's none of that sort of stuff. You know, not at all. It's like
dreaming. And the scenes with his wife are very. They could be out of Look Back in Anger. They're very
absolutely. Yeah.
But when he's fantasizing and imagining and having a stress moment, then all bets are off in terms of the fantasy. But
do you think so? I mean, the film is always in the top 10 of people's like world's greatest critics. And do you think you said something really interesting that you think that might be because it is about the film industry and it's about acting and directing? And do you think that's why critics love it so much?
I think possibly, I do. I really do. It is a great film. I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting it's not, but it's really interesting that it's had this very long reputation that hasn't faltered.
No, and its subject is more profound, for want of a better word, than La Dolce Vita, which is
I think
more enjoyable as a sort of glamorous, and it's not so harsh on them.
No,
really, than as 8.5 is. So I think it's more of a serious film, which critics will like as well. But but I think films about show business always do well, like Birdman. But I enjoyed because I'm in sort of show business myself and sort of thing. So I enjoyed Birdman. I enjoyed the auditions in La La Land.
Yes.
And I think, is this meaning as much to other people? I'm not sure. But the people who vote for those films and write about those films are in the business.
I've just thought of a difference between La Dolce Vita and 8.5, actually. The first time I went to Rome, I wanted to go and have a cocktail at a hotel. Is at the top of the Spanish Steps because it's where Fellini used to hold court. This was long after Fellini would have been holding court. This was 1980 something. But it was really interesting. In my head, I was living out La Dolce Vita, not 8.5. That's the difference. And I think that's why La Dolce Vita is probably a rather more superficial film than 8.5. It doesn't leave you feeling really. 8.5 can actually, although it is life affirming at the end, it keeps pulling the carpet from under your feet. And I think it's really. I always do this when I go to a city. That I always think, okay, what movie am I going to be in? And I wanted to be in La Dolce Vita.
It's very stylish, and it's
exactly
one who exist in. They are beautiful people, and it tries to show that it's sad and desperate.
Yes.
But you kind of go, well, as sad and desperate experiences go, I'll go for that one. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sad and desperate. I don't care. I'm still going to have a cocktail.
And we all want to run around the Trevi Fountain with Anita.
Of course, absolutely.
Flashing water up.
You just want to do that.
Well, she gets up as well. I mean, I remember she gets off the plane and she's like, supposedly, isn't she supposed to be American or something? No, I'm like, is she supposed to be American?
She's
not very convincing.
Nordic of some sort.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember whether she is in fact Swedish, but she's definitely from a different culture. So. But she's badly dubbed.
Badly dubbed. There's a lot of bad dubbing goes on in these films, but I've accepted that now because it's like it's just the way they make films, which is fine.
Yeah.
Who did the dubbing on this film? It's terrible. Why don't they just film it? That's the way they make films. I'm going to accept that.
Absolutely. Just remember that Fellini was at the bottom of the steps and that airport shot, shouting at these experts.
Wave your hands more.
Absolutely, stick your chest out more.
You don't see him. There are interviews with Bergman everywhere. You know,
Yeah,
he interviewed a lot.
it's
They
interesting.
always started by saying he never gives many interviews. He's such a recluse. And I thought this is about the 15th I've seen today.
Absolutely,
Fellini, you don't need
no.
him at all.
I don't think I've ever seen an interview with him actually.
No, and I wouldn't really know what he looks like, to be honest.
He's round and quite chubby and very and slightly balding and not like the director in 8½.
Yeah, that's a real kind of fan. And
He's
also,
not that Fellini.
I wonder how much of it is, because he's never spoken about it, I wonder how much of it is autobiographical. Because they always say that, don't they? But it's like, you know, his imagination is going to run away with him in
Yes.
the context of the fact that he is a director. But you know, Marcello Mastroianni doesn't look anything like him. And
No, absolutely. I don't think the film could be anything other than, I can't imagine that the film is anything other. Maybe it's because it's such a genius film, but I can't imagine it not being autobiographical, actually. But there's a step back from it, that he's doing this really clever magic trick where he's making a film about not being able to make a film, but he makes a brilliant film doing it.
Yeah.
I think most people would make a horrible mess of it. And
And they have.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care that
8½ is the amount of films that he'd made up to that point.
Yes, it's a very funny joke.
Yeah, but then they, you know, the musical, which is based on it, because they're
isn't that called 10 or 9?
9. They made a film version with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes.
Why
oh my God, Daniel Day-Lewis was so, he really got on my nerves. I'm sorry, he was so everything that you don't want the director to be. So maybe it was genius. He's so self-absorbed that you just want to hit him. It's maybe because he's such a great actor. But I actually found the film a bit annoying.
Well, it wasn't a hit. It wasn't.
No, it cost a fortune.
Yeah. And I think Daniel Day-Lewis is very good at playing characters, but I think in this particular film, which is what Mastroianni does so brilliantly.
Yes.
So I'm like a little hippopotamus on a tightrope when I'm walking around that maze.
Mastroianni. It's really yeah. I have to take a breath and run at it every time. Yeah.
He is incredibly engaging. Yeah. So you can lay a lot of that obnoxious behaviour on him.
Yes.
And he will make you understand.
He has charm. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, charm.
He charms you.
I don't think Daniel Day-Lewis is very charming.
No.
From what you're telling me, and I need to watch it, I might skim through it, but he went on to play that annoying character in Phantom Thread.
He's great in that, actually. It's funny.
Yeah.
I think that's because he's got two women absolutely dominating him all the way through the film. It's such a good.
Supposed to be charmed by him. He's not more.
No, he's absurd. He is absurd. Whereas in 9, he's not. I just thought of a very funny thing. I remember Steptoe and Son.
Oh yeah.
Way back in the late 60s or something. The son, what's his name, Harold, wants to go to the pictures with the dad. And he says, we're going to go and see 8½. And he says, what's that? His hat size?
Because it was a big hit, wasn't it? It was a big...
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really well-known film, absolutely.
Well, I think a lot of... I've spoken about this before, because and even Woody Allen has spoken about it, that he went to see Summer with Monica thinking it was going to be a dirty movie. Because that's how it was sold.
Yes, of course. It was challenging and a bit naughty. I went into the Film Society thinking, oh, this is going to be a bit naughty.
A bit naughty. And then because international films tended to be a little less childish about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
On a daily basis. And so that was the appeal. And so these films would be big hits, because I think they were more,
I think people wanted to see Anita Ekberg, getting wet.
Yeah, exactly. Getting wet, or people actually lying in bed next to each other.
Yeah, no, exactly, absolutely.
Married people actually lying in bed together.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. The film I watched the other day, the Bergman film, oh God, what was it called? Jesus Christ. The Through a Glass Darkly.
Oh yes,
Uh,
yes.
that was 1961, and
Yeah,
there's a scene in it where the girl rapes the brother rapes
yeah,
the girl.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that would be shocking in a film today.
Yeah.
So they were really talking about things that Hollywood films were not talking about.
I remember being absolutely I broke out into a cold sweat watching Persona, where she's talking about the day on the beach, with the two boys. I'd never heard anyone talk so openly about sex. And I was about, I don't know what I was, 15 or something. I didn't think it was bad. I found it very liberating, but it was really shocked me.
But I was watching
And
it
you
now.
don't see anything; it's all in her head.
It's all in her head, and you know, I mean, it's hard to know what has actually happened and
Well,
not.
yeah, absolutely.
But I watched it and thought, because everything now gets funneled through the sort of Me Too filter
Yes.
in a good way, and I was thinking,
Yeah.
she's basically describing. I don't know. She's older. They're younger. It's how young? She says young boys.
It's very interesting. I watched it again, and that was one of those films that I went back to. I watched it again because you'd seen it, and I'm not sure who's being sexually aggressive in what's going on in her head, because the two girls are actually quite in charge of what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not
And they're
like
always
two
just
boys.
staring at them, and they
Yes,
basically invite them over.
yes.
Basically, they're on a beach.
They
They
kind of
realise they're being
initially
stared at by
invite.
what they describe as young boys,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
invite them over, and they all have a sort of orgy.
yeah, absolutely.
Described in quite graphic detail in the film in 19.
It's amazing detail. It made me feel unbelievably liberated and really uncomfortable simultaneously.
And Liv Ullmann, I mean, I'm going to talk about this later. Liv Ullmann is on talking about it. She said she was in.
Oh yeah.
Her and Bibi Anderson shared a hotel room, and they would just learn their lines at night and just look at each other and go, "What's this all about?" They've got no idea.
What is Ingmar talking about?
What is he talking about? The first thing she says in the interview is, "Please don't ask me what it's about."
That's really good. That's really good. What an opening line that is. We've got 45 minutes. What am I going to ask you?
I mean, she must be asked that a lot. But
Yeah.
I think bringing it back to 8.5. There's no doubt what this film is about. There's not much ambiguity about what.
No, there isn't. Absolutely not. I think it's not an intellectual film. Actually,
Oh.
I think Ingmar Bergman is interested in ideas and the intellect, and Fellini is interested in emotions and images. I think.
Images that are. I mean,
there is a little bit of. There is a bit of merging between the two of them, but one is. Fellini is just so Italian.
I wonder if he's. I wonder if he's undergoing sort of psychoanalysis. I did read that he was very into Jung.
Oh.
And he was very Jungian. And I don't, I'm going to come right out there and say I don't really know the difference between Jung and Freud. You might know, but I think possibly dreams have something to do with that, and it's more emphasis on dreams. So I wonder whether he was going through some sort of Jungian therapy and trying to work out whether his dreams were trying to tell him something about his life.
I think it'd be really interesting. I have the sense that Fellini would never see an analyst, because he'd be worried that it might mean that he couldn't make another movie.
Yeah,
but I don't know whether that's true. I don't know whether that's true.
There are quite a few.
Let's find out.
Who started therapy and then realised, oh my God, I don't want you to switch that tap off.
No, exactly.
To live with. It's basically fueling my artistic career.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine if Beethoven had therapy? You can imagine Blue Danube or something like that.
Any of them. Can you imagine Tchaikovsky going to see an analyst?
God, don't give up to Tchaikovsky. See, we are digressing because I get so annoyed with people about Tchaikovsky. I might do a separate whole thing about this where I just rant.
Really? Why? What annoys you about people?
Because they always talk about, the performances that they like are performances that try and iron out his hysteria, and that, and he's radical. He would sometimes let his emotions sail away, so any sort of symphonic structure would go out the window. and like, you know,
Do they see that as a bad thing because he's not
they see
controlling?
it as a bad thing because
Oh,
and
I
it's
see.
possibly some sort of, you know, he's not a butch composer like Beethoven. He's not a
No.
nose. He's not a, you know, he's there's a certain amount of.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they didn't
Absolutely.
know that he was gay. I mean,
Yes.
I'm talking about reviewers of a certain.
Yeah. Sure.
If they
Yeah.
didn't know he was gay, they wouldn't even refer to it. But it's like,
No. No.
and that's him. That makes him. It's those bits where he goes off into some sort of emotional frenzy.
Yes.
That's him. Totally
Yeah.
makes him.
Exactly.
And
No,
so,
the
and
trouble
I
is,
think that's true about a lot of great artists, and probably true about Fellini as well. It's the excesses and the
yeah.
things that possibly annoy you about him that make him great. That make him stand out from another director, really.
And I think 8.5 isn't afraid of annoying you. That's the thing. I
No.
mean, there were moments throughout where I was kind of resisting it, thinking, "Oh, these bloody Catholics, pull yourself
Oh
together."
yes, we haven't even mentioned
Because
the
I'm not a Catholic, I always get that
Catholic.
anti-clericism. I always have to think, "Okay, Philip, calm down. This is what
Catholicism
what
goes.
we went through." No, no,
Catholicism
no.
goes through the whole film. I mean, it
Yeah,
literally goes through the whole film. I mean,
yeah.
and especially the scene where he's, oh my God, who's he talking to in the sauna? It's so brilliant to set it in the sauna because it looks like some sort of
Yes, exactly.
Roman
That's
bar.
exactly what it looks like. I think Fellini knew exactly what he was doing. That it looks like the ancient world.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah,
sort of the whole, you know, when he's a child and the sort of,
yes,
you know, so basically what you're feeling and what you're experiencing, why you find this woman up on the hill dancing with your
yes, yeah.
breasts more interesting than doing your catechism. That's, you know, that's because you're a sinner, not because you're a human being.
No,
I mean, he
well,
addressed all that, and actually in Italy at the time probably was
oh yeah,
the
exactly.
Pope hated it probably.
Absolutely. I do recommend Juliet of the Spirits actually, because
Yeah,
that really plumbs the depths of Catholic, not guilt, but its imagery is completely to do with the theatricality of the Catholic Church, which I love it.
I love it. I'm rereading Berlioz's memoirs, right?
Oh right, okay.
I
The
sound like
way
a
you do,
hi,
yeah.
welcome to Sue's Corner, but I am. I can show you the book if I want. And I actually took a photocopy of this and sent it to Brian, who's
Ah,
for those who don't know. And he says, "Oh, the Catholic Church is so beautiful. It's such a charming religion, especially since they stopped burning people." He's a very funny diarist, and
oh, I love
I
that.
mean, I mean, it's true, isn't it? It's got great, you know, they burn people, but hey, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a good, you know, if you're going to go out on a Sunday and go to a mass, take in that show. It's a great show.
exactly, because it's the best show in town. It really is.
The bells, the smells, the
Yeah,
singing,
yeah.
the
I,
whole bit.
I am really glad that I went to a very high Anglican school because although I was standing outside of it all throughout, and I had the choice of not going, I mean, I could have not gone to chapel every morning, but I loved it. I loved all of that. And it's so beautiful. And it was my introduction to English literature and,
Mm,
because of hymns and, it's
yes,
just what a thing I think the idea of missing out on that now is such
yeah,
a shame,
yeah. I mean, it just,
even if
you
it
know,
does fit you.
my, you know, some of my relations or friends and that, and their kids go to classic school. I can only hope
Yes.
they're better, and I think they are because
Oh, I'm sure
they're
they are.
very, you know,
Absolutely.
a bit of a generalisation. They're very good schools. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, they are
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I,
Absolutely.
but I hope they're skipping over the original sin thing because I
Yeah.
didn't go to a Catholic school, but I came from a very Catholic family,
Yes.
and so I went to Sunday school, and I do remember so I could take my confirmation. Really.
Yes.
And I do remember being told, "Well, you are a sinner. There's no two ways about it. You were born that way, so it's not a question of." Uh, it's not a question of I'll wait until I've done something wrong.
Yes.
You're in a state of perpetual sin.
Yeah.
That you're
That's an
resolved.
extraordinary thing to say to a child, isn't it?
And what a thing to tell a child.
Yes.
And of course, you get into that weird thing where you end up lying in the confession box because
Yeah.
you want to get
Oh,
the hell out of there.
yeah. Yeah.
And they're saying, well,
Yeah,
you
I
must
know.
have done something wrong. Yes, I told my mother to fuck off or something like that, which I would never.
Yes. No, no,
And,
of course not.
and how
Exactly.
can I go now? Well, I've just committed another sin. Can I come back next week and tell you about that?
That would be very meta if you went back the next Sunday and said, that thing I said last Sunday, it was a lie.
Yeah. And he's saying, "Are you lying now or are you lying there?"
Exactly. Oh, well, you don't know. I might come back next Sunday.
And
You know what?
I mean, it didn't. I don't think it damaged me really. I mean, it must have affected my personality, but I, I, I was very analytical. I remember I really annoyed my parents uh, sitting at the dinner table and saying to them, I think I was about 8. And just thinking about it really carefully, and I might talk
Yes.
to Philip, and I just said, "Is Jesus like Father Christmas? Is he just like?"
Such
He
a
said,
good
"It's
question.
fine. I get it. I get
Yeah.
it."
Yes.
I don't think I quite put it like that because that would have been slightly obnoxious. Look, I get it, people. But I was basically saying, no, it's fine. I get it. It's like, so we all behave. It's a lovely, so we all behave. And I
Yeah.
thought, don't you all say that. And I was
You know
like,
what?
I'm just trying to sort it out what all this craziness is about.
Exactly. You know what all this has reminded me of, actually, just bringing it back to films? Terence Davis is one of my favourite directors. Absolutely. I would, The Long Day Closes
Yeah,
is one of my, that would be in my top 10.
yeah.
And that is very much about a little boy going through Catholicism and being in love with the cinema. Have you seen it?
I think I saw it years and years ago. Probably, I
I
want to see it
really
again.
recommend it.
Yeah,
Have another look, John. I think it's a genius film.
I know.
There's,
I know he uses music, and he's brilliant at people being nostalgic about music.
yeah, everyone sings. It's really wonderful. People just sing because
Yeah,
it came from that period where people would actually did sing in the pub.
yeah,
But he's also absolutely in love with the cinema, and there's a wonderful scene where he's in church, but also in the cinema at the same time, and the camera is overhead, and he goes through the rows of people, and then he goes through the rows of people in the cinema smoking,
Oh,
and
oh yeah.
yeah, it's all this fantastic production,
Yeah,
and it's all this fabulous fantasy. It's just a fabulous film. I really love it. It's called The Long Day
yes.
Closes.
I remember watching a program, and actually, this was my introduction to this film. He did a program for Channel 4 where directors
Oh
chose
yeah.
their favourite films, and he chose Cries and Whispers, which is
Oh,
my
I
favourite
can
film. He
imagine
made a
you
program
love
about Cries and
Tyson.
Whispers I watched, and I went and watched Cries and Whispers and thought,
Yes.
so I must need to go back and watch that.
Oh,
I think I've seen Distant Voices Still Lives. That was one of his
which
ones.
and people say that that's a better film than The Long Day Closes, but personally,
Yeah.
because I was a kid obsessed with going to the cinema,
Mm.
it's The Long Day Closes that I absolutely touched me in a way that it's just a wonderful film. And the end of the film, I'm not going to tell you the end of the film. It's beautiful.
I'm not going to watch it. I'm hoping now it's on Amazon Prime or something like that.
I think you can get it. I think it's even on YouTube. Actually, I
Oh,
think
brilliant.
the whole thing is on YouTube. Anyway, but you can get it very easily, and I really recommend it.
It's amazing how many of these films are on YouTube. The only one that hasn't been so far, I think, was Breathless, and that was on BFI Player.
Yes,
But
yes.
Through a Glass Darkly, Tokyo Story, and Eight and a Half with subtitles is on.
Fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I know. Okay, I'm going to just drop Fellini for a bit. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but tell me what you think
No,
about.
it's my channel, so I can do what I like.
I want to just talk for 2 minutes
Yeah.
about Tokyo Story
Yes,
because
you can.
I think it's the most humane film. It's just so. There's nothing in it that isn't necessary.
Yeah.
It's really unusual visually because it's all at that funny.
It's like this.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. They
Yeah.
don't bother looking at each other's eyes.
Yeah.
It's such a humane film.
Yeah.
And that is a film I've gone back to a number of times and
Yeah.
got so much out of it. So, did you enjoy it?
I absolutely loved it. I loved it. It was my friend Ruth Mulholland who watched it, who wasn't looking forward to it. And
Oh, really? Because
like me, for the first hour, thought it's fascinating, but there's not a lot going on.
No,
And I
well,
didn't really know what it was about. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't realise it was such a family drama. I think you'd said it's a film about family.
Yes.
I didn't really know what context that was in, but I just thought it was amazing. And I mean, we spoke a lot. We spoke a lot about it, and we spoke about our own families. I mean, that's what it kind of does. It
It does do that.
makes me
Absolutely.
realise that it's not just the West who are horrible to their elders.
No, that's what's really fascinating because it's a culture that I thought, and this is in the really early 50s. And you think of the Japanese as being very looking after their old people and all of that, and having great respect for them.
Yes.
And it's absolutely not.
But you wonder, is it because they're becoming more Western? Because it's really
Yeah,
fascinating film, sort of socially, politically
yeah.
as well, if that's the right phrase, because it's about
It's at that moment
after
where Japan is really
just
changing.
as it's
Yeah,
about to take off
yeah,
and outdo the West at their own game.
absolutely.
And so old Japan is being left behind by these people who don't have a minute in the day.
Yeah,
They're desperate to rebuild their country.
yes.
And it's a simple film, but so profound in so
I,
many.
I really love it.
Scene of the grandmother taking the little toddler out because the daughter thinks, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone.
Yes,
But
yeah,
an annoying child and an annoying mother, so I'm going to make them go out together. And the grandmother's just so not Hollywood. She just stares at the little boy playing.
and he's pulling up grass, isn't he?
Expression, beautiful
Yeah,
expression on her face.
yeah,
Just what are you
absolutely.
going to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
And without any kind of emotional music, hugging,
No,
crying,
there's none of that. Absolutely.
volumes
Yeah,
about her not being able to see him when he grows
yeah,
up, and wondering
yeah.
what it's going to be like, and because I mean
You
it's
know, you know that that's what
absolutely
he's
lovely,
talking about.
and it's a film you think a lot of these films you think about them afterwards, and you get
Yeah.
really patient with modern films. You sort of think.
Stop pushing me into thinking something,
Yeah,
like you're being
you're not
prompted to think
engaging me.
something.
You're not engaging
Yes,
me in any way. You
absolutely.
just keep spoon feeding me what I want,
Yeah,
and that's annoying. I'm not being challenged at all.
yes.
And you are challenged by these films. Sometimes you think this is going to be boring. I don't get it, but you do. In pretty much, I've got it. Even Celine and Judy Go Boating, which I watched, and I'm not going to make anybody else watch. Get it in the end. I did get it in the
Tell
end.
me what you think of it. Because when I saw it when it came out. So when was that, 74 or something?
Yeah, it might have played better in '74 because it looks
Yeah.
a little bit.
I was young and full of postmodernism.
I was
And
looking at them thinking, God, the '70s are the decade of fashion for God. Jesus Christ. Maybe I'm the pair of them with their
they
t-shirts.
looked terrible.
Did they have,
They did look terrible.
air conditioner in those days? I mean,
Yes, her
that's
frizzy hair,
terrible.
all
But it's kooky. It's kind of
yeah,
kooky. And then then it goes into this whole, after a very long time,
yes,
whole thing where they are reliving this experience
yeah.
after.
By eating boiled sweets, I seem to
Right.
remember.
Well, they end up with a boiled sweet in their mouth,
Yeah,
which, if they then eat, they relive the experience again.
yes, yeah,
And so, can they change the experience? It's
yes.
sort of Agatha Christie type family mystery or something. I think if you
What
think
did you
they're
think
both,
of it?
I think if you think they're both hilarious from the word go,
Yeah,
you'll love it. I found them incredibly annoying
annoying.
because
That's really,
they're so bad at acting.
oh no,
I
they
don't
are.
know if it's deliberate, but there's like he found somebody else. She speaks up the phone and goes like that. That's the most unconvincing phone call I've ever seen. It's supposed to be like that. I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be like that, but it just
No. That's really interesting because when I saw it, because I was in my early 20s, I thought it was kooky and utterly charming. And I
yeah
didn't mind that it was a very long time sitting in the National Film Theatre.
yeah.
It really was. And I came out thinking that was really clever and I liked it and I liked being in their company. And
Yes.
now I have a feeling I will try and watch it again and I'm sure they'll annoy the life out of me.
Well, I hope they don't now because I said they annoyed
No.
me. But
I have a
I think
feeling that as I've got older, I've become, less likely to be.
I just thought it looks very '70s and it looks
Yes.
quite cheap.
Yeah. Oh, it must have cost nothing.
Nothing at all. So
Yeah.
it looks a little bit like I suppose nowadays you can go out with your iPhone and make that with a
Yeah.
friend,
Yes, that's a
and
good
it would
point.
look a
Actually,
lot better. So
yeah.
and because not a lot is happening, I had a lot of time to ponder on how kind of cheap it looked and
Yeah.
how unconvincing they were.
Yes.
But then, but it's basically a film about not being a film and about
Yes.
changing the plot and breaking all the rules of film, which was what a lot of those French film
Yes.
were into doing. And I think it kind of already been done in Breathless, which I already spoke about.
Yes.
But I think the problem with French films is, especially films of that time, is so much of it is in what they say, and
Yeah,
you need a more accurate translation of what they're
yeah,
saying. Especially in
absolutely.
Breathless, there was a few problems in Breathless that I discussed in when we were doing this about it. That
Yeah,
I thought that's like there's a running joke that she doesn't know what she speaks perfect French, but she keeps asking him, qu'est-ce que c'est this, qu'est-ce que c'est that, and
yes,
that qu'est-ce que c'est is translated differently every time. And I just thought, well, that's that joke gone out the window. So there's a lot of slang
yes,
you don't
right,
get.
absolutely.
And
And
I think
you know, voler un bateau means taken for a ride.
only because you told me that,
Right. So I mean,
which makes
and
sense.
as I remember, and I've you know, I've got A-level French, which is getting rusty by the year,
Mm.
but I recognise certain jokes in it that weren't being translated,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is a long time. This was when I first saw it. So I'm going to go back to it and see it again. But it's interesting, isn't it? That okay, so at the time I was going out with somebody who's writing a PhD thesis on a writer called Alain Robbe-Grillet, who wrote Last Year at Marienbad.
Oh
And his novels are all deconstructions of the novel. And this guy that I was going out with thought it was so clever and so modern, Fat Postman.
yeah,
And I was thinking, actually, that's what Tristan Shandy did in
yes.
1787 or something. You know,
Stepping out of it.
yeah, absolutely, and making fun of the art form itself.
Yes,
It's not new at all.
it's not new. And isn't the
I've got
taking of
into a lot of trouble saying that, but he loved
well, it
it.
definitely it deconstructs film,
Yeah.
and you compare that to French cinema
We've
was
got
very
to know
grand.
that, don't we? We know that film is a construct. Don't we know that?
Yeah, yes, you certainly know that is one. I mean, I don't. Well, I think they improvise a lot of it, and God,
Yes.
that show. It's
Yes.
the most improvised film I've seen since the Blair Witch Project, and that's what I watched 10 minutes of the Blair Witch Project, and I think, stop, hire a scriptwriter, come back. Uh, Only so many times you can say we're lost in different ways. I think if you're brilliant at improvising,
Yeah.
go and work for John Cassavetes. If you're
Yes.
not,
Exactly.
if you're not
Yeah.
good at improvising, write these girls a script because they don't know
Work,
what
work
to
for Alan
say. They don't know what to say. But yeah, so that was, and it's 3 hours and 15
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be whimsical, really.
Absolutely. And whimsical is exactly the right word. And I think when I was 20, whatever it was, 22 or something,
Yeah.
and going out with somebody writing this bloody PhD, it felt like the right thing to do. But
Yeah, and it probably in about 10 years' time when 70 Chic comes back again, I'll probably look at it so stylish, but it looks not stylish to me now. It looks a little
no,
bit nasty. But yes, so I didn't ask my friend to watch that. And so
was
far I've
it
done 7
David that was meant to watch it? Because
David,
it's
David.
very unfair on poor old David.
And I've given him Rashomon instead, which is an hour and 20.
Oh, that would be much better. And also a film about filmmaking, if you think about it. It's a film about storytelling. It's a
Yeah,
film about what is truth.
yes,
When people
like
retell this story constantly,
from,
fabulously.
from different angles.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been quite good. I've been able to sort of review what I've done up to
Oh,
this point.
good.
And then
Well,
honestly, there's never anything, I mean, with me anyway, there's never anything shortage to talk about. So I can talk about
I'm
okay.
really, I'm really pleased that you suggested that I rewatch Eight and a Half anyway, because it's been sitting there in my head all these years without me actually going back to it. So
Yeah, and I'm really, because you watch a film on your own, and it's a little bit of an isolating. You say, well, I've watched it, but you do
yeah,
get that urge to talk about it, especially these films. I don't
yeah,
get the urge to talk about, most new films on Netflix that turn up.
no,
But I do get an urge to talk about these because they're controversial a lot of the
yes,
time,
exactly,
and
absolutely,
they're made to provoke debate. They want you
yeah,
to go out and to discuss them. I'm sure, uh, Breathless was like the talk of
yeah,
the coffee people in the street or whatever
absolutely. Well,
afterwards.
that
Um,
food does look very chic.
it does, yeah. I mean, again, it's
She looks amazing.
oh yeah, absolutely. The pair of them are just you can't take your eyes off them. We're talking
No,
about Breathless now. Gene Seberg. Is this we're talking about
Gene
Gene?
Seberg, yeah,
I
just
mean, he was very lucky with his cast because they are pair of them are film stars. She's was
oh,
a good actress, but in that she doesn't come over as a great actress because she's got
no,
a weird American accent, which she didn't need to do.
Yes.
But, and again, a lot of it's improvised, but you cannot take your eyes off her. She knows
No,
a ton of
she's.
them. She's got a Vidal Sassoon haircut before it was even invented. This is
I
19,
know, absolutely, exactly, absolutely.
you know.
You never did you ever see the musical Gene Seberg?
There's
A musical about Gene Seberg. A
oh,
friend of mine was in it, and there were three Gene Sebergs. There's a dancer, an actor, and a puppeteer or something. I can't remember, but there were three Gene Sebergs, and he called it
starting
Gene.
a drug because she worked in a Seaberg's drugstore. It was like, Gene, come down. It's time to get working in the drugstore. Coming, Daddy. I can see it already.
A friend of mine was in that production. It was at the National Theatre, and he called it Gene Threeberg, and it was a disaster. Awful,
Oh
awful,
no.
pretentious nonsense.
Oh God, I
But
love
anyway,
people renaming things because they're flops. Do you remember the musical about Bernadette of Lourdes?
oh, I loved that. Do you know I went to see that?
Did you? Was it good?
Oh, it was awful.
But I loved it. It was next to Jeffrey Bernard is unwell,
Oh,
and no, or the poster was up next to it for Jeffrey Bernard
right.
is unwell, and so they crossed out the Jeffrey and they put Saint Bernadette is unwell,
Oh, well.
and I
I don't know
love
how
a
long
witty
it
graffiti
ran.
artist.
I went with a friend of mine. We were roaring with laughter all the way through it, surrounded by people who had obviously come all the way from Shropshire or somewhere to see it. You know, like lots of church groups had come to
A
see it.
lot of coach parties from Irish centres all over England.
Absolutely, it was the
I think my
most.
mother wanted to go. I think
Oh, it was so funny. You would
she
have
never
loved
wanted to come to London. She was living in Ireland, and she never wanted to come to London. But I think
it.
she'd heard
You'd
about
want to
this.
see that.
The priest had mentioned it or something in the, and I think there was nuns, nuns traipsing through Soho after see this, after seeing this musical,
It
which is
was
dire.
jaw-droppingly bad. I mean, it was. There was a scene with waiters for no reason at all dancing, and you know their bottles were glued onto the tray so they didn't drop.
Was there
And
a big number called "I Am the Immaculate Conception"?
oh my God, there were so many big numbers, and they all sounded exactly the same. And is there a spring of water or something connected
Yes, there's
to
a
it?
well, it's still flowing.
Okay,
That's what they all
so
believe in. So
every
they
so
throw their
often,
wheelchairs away. Throw their wheelchairs away straight away, apparently.
yes,
Yeah.
she would go to the grotto, and there'd be this extraordinary noise as the electric pump started working. It's so funny. It was one of the funniest evenings in the theatre I've ever
Is
had.
that the Virgin Mary switching it on? Somewhere?
Yes, exactly that.
Hold on a second, I'm just switching it on for you. There
It's exactly like that.
you go. But
And
I mean, the actual film, I've seen a million times because my mother loved it. It is a really good film,
I
Jennifer.
know it is a good film. She's wonderful.
Wonderful score, and apparently Stravinsky wrote a soundtrack for that film, but they
I
sort of
didn't know that.
rejected it because
Blimey, I'm sure. Yeah.
it's a very Wagnerian
Yes.
score.
Yes.
It's beautiful. I mean, she's got a slight. I love the fact that she's English. She couldn't possibly
Yeah.
be American. The Virgin.
No. No, you can't
We
have
all
a
know the
virgin.
Virgin Mary is English.
Yeah.
She's like, "Hi, how you doing? How you doing?" Well, that
And
sense
with
of.
Bernadette, she was Irish.
But you kind of think Jennifer Jones after that. If she was, because once the Catholic, obviously it's terrible. I'm not going to have to edit this out. But I think once you are appreciated as an actor,
Yes.
because my mother loved Gregory Peck because he played the
Ah.
priest. He put or he
Yeah.
like
Of
a priest
course.
or something.
Yeah.
And she loved Jennifer Jones. So
Yes.
when she found out Jennifer Jones actually got married and had children, she was like horrified. And then I think she appear in some sort of racy western.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
Sorry, once you've taken the Catholic,
that's
once you've
it.
portrayed someone like that.
Don't do it first because it'll wreck your career.
But honestly, this is all Catholic Church, so it's all about 8.5, really. It's all about movies. But no,
It is.
quite a
I
good
mean,
recap so far.
no, we've touched on all sorts of aspects of 8.5 that have inevitably reminded us of other things.
Of other things, especially I'm glad we mentioned the Catholic thing at the end there because it's part of the film. And I think I forgot to mention it. I usually wrap these up.
Oh yeah, how are you going to wrap it up?
By asking you, do you think it deserves its classic status?
I think undoubtedly it does. think it does the impossible, which is to make a film about making a film and the impossibility of making a film.
Yeah.
Totally possible and completely entertaining from beginning to end.
Totally.
And very few directors could do that. So I still think it's one. It's great coming back to it after all these years and still being completely eyes bowled over by it. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely deserving of it. Once I got over the dubbing thing and realized I had to look at it in a different way for like great performances, even though there are great performances in it. But I loved the self-indulgence of it. I loved how obviously it influenced so many other films that I'd seen.
Absolutely.
You know,
and still does. I think there are still directors who are really influenced by it.
All That Jazz, the Bob Fosse film, which is now. That's a great film.
Oh, that's the opening sequence of All That Jazz is genius.
That deserves a revival. Really.
Yeah, I'd love to see it again. Actually, again, I haven't seen it since it came out. I'd love to see it again. So you've tempted me. I'm going to watch that.
All That Jazz. I'd love to see that again, and I watched that when it first came out.
It's a very 8.5 film.
It's
it's about a director struggling.
Examining your psyche, and
absolutely.
there must have been loads of writers who've done that. I mean, Thomas Mann. I don't. Well, that was more about Marlowe rather than him. But I mean, I'm sure there was a lot. Deccan Bennett, sorry. But, so it's not a new thing for artists to examine their own lives.
Not at all. Absolutely not.
I think he was the first person to put it into film.
Yeah.
Because I think the Europeans definitely saw it more as an art form than.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So yes, it definitely gets, and all the films so far, I've totally seen how it is. I didn't like Breathless much, but I totally.
Yeah, but you can see why.
I was a French guy who'd had endless costume dramas and expensive French films.
Yes.
And that meant nothing to me. And I was like an 18-year-old who went to see that film. I think it'd be the equivalent of seeing the Sex.
No, definitely, absolutely.
For me, this is.
Yeah.
I could make this film,
Yeah.
All the films so far, I've definitely.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Give me another one.
I will.
You don't have to do it now, but give me another one.
Now, I could give you Persona. I still haven't handed out Persona yet. And
can we do Persona? Have we already talked about it too much? No. I'd love to do it. I
tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing. I mean, there is such a thing, but I don't.
I'd love to do Persona. That would be great.
No, I can't think of anybody else who would do it as well.
Oh, I'd love to do it. Thank you. And then, in fact, I'm going to do it now.
I don't think I won't say too much about it, but I don't think I've ever seen any film that has been such what you could call a work of art. And as Woody Allen says, when you're watching great art, it has a thrill of its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
The audacity of it is
incredible. Yeah.
I mean, anyway, but we'll save that. We'll save that for that.
That's going to be our next film.
Philip, that's where we're at. How long have we been? Can you
blimey, an hour and 38 minutes.
An hour and 38 minutes. You're the longest so far.
Any surprise?
They usually, and honestly, they usually naturally, because I don't look at the time, they usually naturally wind up around about after an hour. And I go, oh, that's another hour. But I could say, because we had a little sidebar.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a lot of sidebars, John.
We had a lot of sidebars.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it as well. You're probably thinking at one stage,
I'm going to have lunch.
Am I grumbling?
Okay, Persona, definitely.
Persona, yeah, I'll let you know. I've got to do Brian's next. The next one in the series will be
whenever you're ready. But I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it tonight. Actually, I'd love to watch it again.
Brian's watched Buñuel, Viridiana, and I.
Oh, fantastic!
So we're going to record that on Monday.
Oh, marvelous! Oh, I'd love to know what you both think of that. That's great.
Yes.
Talk about anti-clemency.
I love that as well. I love that. All right then.
All right.
Bye, Philip. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And I'll see you soon. Bye, Philip. Bye now.
Bye.